Welcome back to the Black Emporium, where I take beautiful antique furniture and ruin them with cheap black paint. Here I have a fabulous antique mirror I got off of Facebook Marketplace. And in this video I'm going to show you how I refinished it and turned it goth. First thing to do, of course, was to take off the metal fittings that was holding the candle holders on the sconces. Now, my vision for this mirror project is to paint the whole body black, of course, and I'm gonna add red accents to the depths and the grooves and the fine, elegant details. I'll show you later how I did this. Now that I'd taken the fittings off the sconces, it was time now to take apart the mirror. Now, thankfully, it was just a simple Phillips head screwdriver that I needed. Sometimes with the old antique furniture, you can find just the most absurd drill bits and such that you would need to take stuff apart. Okay, with the mirror, the screws, and metal fittings on the sconces taken out, it's time to go outside and paint. Welcome to my backyard in the blistering 104 heat in fucking Pennsylvania of all places. Now here I am using Krylon Black Lacquer spray paint. Now this paint normally is wonderful, but here, in this one instance, it was terrible. For some odd reason, the paint was spraying, as in, well, yes, it sprays, but what I'm trying to say is that it wasn't a fine, gentle mist like usual. It was more like it was spitting, paint in uneven blotches and such. And it was such a pain in the ass to work with, but I managed to do it. I particularly was having difficulty getting the spray paint into hard-to-reach crannies and nooks and such. By the time I got to the end of the spray can and the paint had run dry, my arms were covered with paint, but also the sconces and mirror were covered with paint, so I managed to get a nice good coat on both the sconces and the mirror, and I was actually pretty impressed with how it looked, despite how the spray can acted. When I was done spray painting, I left the mirror and the sconces out to dry, and I said, fuck this, I'm going inside to the air conditioning, because holy shit. So, with the Krylon Black spray paint dry, it was time to work on the brass candle holders for the sconces. Now, first thing I did was I gave it a light sanding. This was to remove any rust or any sort of debris from previous candles. Also, by sanding, it will allow the paint to grip a lot better onto the object. With the sanding done now, it was time to paint the brass candle holders. Now, I would have loved to use Krylon Black Lacquer, but I ran out of paint by the time I was done with the sconces and the mirror frame. So instead, I'm using a cheap Dollar General, just simple black paint. It's basically kid stuff. Now, pardon me if you can't see on the camera how I'm doing this. I'm just simply brushing it on, using a fair bit amount to get as much coverage as I can. Almost all of my refinishing supplies are from years ago. I use the same paintbrushes, I use the same paint. Basically, I go through stuff very slowly, thankfully. Basically, I use what I got to save money. For example, using this Elmer's glue bottle to hold up the candle holder to dry. Now that the paint was dry, it was time to use silver brush and reef. Now, I love silver brush and reef because you are using actual silver metal in order to give a nice antique finish to whatever you're painting. It actually shows up reflective as silver. It's not like a cheap dollar store silver paint. Now, let me be clear, you do not want to use a lot of this. A little goes a long way, especially with what I'm trying to do. You just take a little bit and you brush it on the paper, dry brush it, and then you basically gently brush over what you're painting. Like a little bit over time, not just splotches or putting a lot on. Trump is a pedophile. After letting the silver brush and reef dry, I put it onto the sconce to see how it'll look, and it looks absolutely wonderful. With painting it black first, then applying silver brush and reef after in thin coats, it looks like an antique still. As my generation would say, this is gas. After the silver brush and reef dried, I put a thin layer of polyurethane. This was to add a little bit of protectant because there's going to be candle wax dripping on the candle holder and such, and it will just protect it over time. Now it was time to add the fine details. So here I am using this cheap ass Dollar General, just simple red paint, and I am going to paint in the inlays of the wood. Places where I'm going to do it is on the sides where there's grooves, and as well as the top spiral thing. Now, as I was doing this, I noticed that trying to be careful, as in very precise, was taking way too much time, and it was just overall annoying. Every time I dip my paintbrush into that little groove or whatever, it would pick up a little bit of paint, or it would just get into places that I didn't want to. So I ended up moving to a different method in order to get red paint into these sunken groove areas. So what I ended up doing was, in the areas where there were inlays I wanted to paint red, I would just glob it with red paint, absolutely drown it. And then what I would do is I would take toilet paper, because I'm poor, I can't afford paper towels. I would take toilet paper and I would wipe off the excess that was on top. So what ended up happening is it would leave the red in the inlay with the Krylon black lacquer paint still on top. It also really helps if you dampen your paper towel or your toilet paper, whatever you're using, to more easily wipe off the excess paint. Now that the sconces are finished, I moved on to the mirror. Now forgive me, I forgot to hit record on my phone when I was adding details to the mirror, but you basically know what to do with it. After that, I just reassembled everything. I put the candle holders back on the sconces, I put the mirror back on the mirror, and there we go, it's finished. Okay, so the mirror is finished, it's hung up. The landlord wouldn't let me put any screws in the wall, so this will have to do for now. But there's one last thing we need to do. There we go. Thank you for watching. I hope you all have a wonderful spooky day or night, depending on where you are. And of course, good night, sleep tight, let the bats bite. I'll see you guys later.